Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew, and welcome on back to Leo Gaming. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I am having a fantastic day, and today we are back in City Skylines. Back in City Skylines and inside of the neighborhood that we built up in the last episode. Now, I did get a comment stating that this area looked pretty bad. Most likely I'll have like a little screenshot of it. I do want to express that within the actual episode, I did mention that I would be focusing on the detailing in this episode. So that's what this episode is reserved for. This area is going to be getting a little bit of a rework as it would. Not just a rework, but it also is going to get a detail overhaul. So first off, I'm going to zoom on out here. Now, one thing that I think I should go and do right away is kind of like close off these blocks a little bit, because as you can see, like these little balconies that we have between here, they're kind of like touching and overlapping with each other, which I kind of don't like. That. So I think we're going to be redoing this entire area along with this. This area is most likely going to get redone as well, because this is just a lot of like samey type builds. And I really want to change this up. Possibly get like a little park area in here. Possibly like turn this into an entire park. So that's something we want to work on. So let's go and do that real quick. And I think I'm going to put that in the form of a time lapse. So hopefully you guys enjoy that, and I'll catch you guys right after. Okay, guys, so that time lapse took a lot longer than what I had expected. That was roughly about an hour and a half's worth of real-time recording. And I gotta say, I think we have a better perspective of our entire area over here. So let me just go and run you guys through in case you guys decided to go and skip the time lapse, okay? So I decided to pretty much delete everything at first. And what we got right here is pretty much what we are at after that. So I kind of wanted to restrict what was actually being plopped down that was a part of the Ocean City collection. Or Ocean City Apartments, that is. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Most of the area is Ocean City. Like this portion over here next to the park gate, which I'll get into why I got a park over here later. But this area over here is kind of like a amalgamation of like I think roughly 20 some odd buildings that are all from the Ocean City collection. And then what I decided to do between this half and this half is have sort of a kind of, I want to say, shopping center type area for this area. So we have like a little bus line that shuttles around the entire district, and it really does work the charm. We don't got a lot of people using it, but it definitely gets a good amount of use. Mostly gets a lot of people like going to and from like the shopping center. We also got some yoga studios, a community pool, which I thought was kind of necessary for this area since this is kind of like a community-based area over here. We still have the main bus line that comes down this center avenue, but instead of coming down here and looping around, I have it instead coming down this way and coming by the elementary school, but goes by, of course, the Japanese garden. And I think that works a little bit better. Now, we, of course, have some spaces that are left open, and I kind of like the idea of leaving that open. I don't like the idea of, like, making it jam-packed in this area. Having a little bit more open sprawl is a little bit better. I also decided to put the townhouses over here and less of these townhouses because if you saw in the beginning of the time-lapse, the townhouses had a lot of parking spaces, or not parking spaces, but parked cars on the streets. So I think that's going to become an issue at some point with the amount of entities that we have in the game. So to go and limit that, we're also going to limit the amount of townhouses that we have in the game. Pretty self-explanatory, right? With that said, I don't think there's anything else. Oh yeah, the park. This is the one thing that I wanted to talk about. And this is at pretty much the end of the time lapse there. The park is kind of just the idea of, like, if people want to have a place to go and relax, they can go to the park, come in through the gate that's over here nearby the shopping center, and take the bridge on over to the other side of the, like, Obligón about, or something like that. And then they come over into the main portion of the park, which is pretty self-explanatory right now. They don't got a lot going on in here, but it is an interesting way of making it work. Anyway, I think that is all I need to go over with this episode. Am I right? Ah, yeah, and something else I need to go over with is the fishing dock. I decided to put a salmon fishing harbor over here, which I think actually looks pretty nice in this area. Kind of gives an idea that this area is alive in a way, not just in terms of residential, but also in terms of industrial. Now, granted, this does have a noise pollution radius, but it's so far away from the actual residents that it doesn't even affect them. So, like, if I go and take a look at the actual noise pollution here, it has a little bit of noise, but it doesn't, like, reach any of our population, so that's really good. We do have a little bit of commercial making a bit of noise, but that's not too bad. It's relatively easy to take care of. We do have the highway taking a bit of noise, but the trees kind of like just muffle the sound. Plus, one thing I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go ahead and get some sound barriers on the highway, just so that way it makes it a bit quieter. And we can't do it right there because obviously it's elevated. I think let's go and get some sound barriers over here and do the same thing for you guys. And you guys can possibly saw that in the middle of that time lapse, I quit the game and went to go grab the fine road tool, so that way we can build up this area over here, the max bridge and the wood bridge. Both of these are serving the highway, which I think is a good addition. It definitely fits the part, I think. And the the pylons that we have in the middle here kind of just look like they're suspending it. Plus, there's a little bit of glitch terrain right there. I'm gonna need to fix that offline. But anyway, I have been playing on for way too long today. I need to go and get offline and get this video out for you guys. And I will have to catch you guys just in the next episode. And yeah, let me know what you guys think of the new area. Does it look better? Does it look a little bit too much the same? But one thing is for certain, it definitely is different. And that's what my primary goal of today's episode was. It was pretty much rebuild the area. It was pretty much a placeholder at first, but then I was like, you know what? It does look a little bit bad. Let's go and get it changed up. Anyway, I will catch you guys for then. Have a good one.